RP Sanjeev Goenka Group is a diversified conglomerate operating in sectors like power and natural resources, carbon black, IT, education, retail, FMCG, media, entertainment, infrastructure and sports. It has 45,000 employees and more than 5 lakh shareholders. Group assets have grown to 48,500 crore rupees. RP Sanjeev Goenka Group is a diversified conglomerate operating in sectors like power and natural resources, carbon black, IT, education, retail, FMCG, media, entertainment, infrastructure and sports. It has 45,000 employees and more than 5 lakh shareholders. Group assets have grown to 48,500 crore rupees. RP Sanjeev Goenka Group is a diversified conglomerate operating in sectors like power and natural resources, carbon black, IT, education, retail, FMCG, media, entertainment, infrastructure and sports. It has 45,000 employees and more than 5 lakh shareholders. Group assets have grown to 48,500 crore rupees.
Hello everyone. We will begin with the session on value creation through sustaining competitiveness and growth by Mr. Shashwat Goenka, Sector Head, Retail and FMCG, RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. Before we begin, I would request you all to be on full screen mode for better resolution and visibility. Mr. Shashwat Goenka is the Vice Chairman of the group's flagship company, CESC Limited. He is also the Sector Head, Retail and FMCG for the group and runs India's premier aspirational organized grocery chain with over 200 stores. He is the founder of India's fastest growing snacks company, 2Yum, and the director in First Source Solutions, Philips Carbon Black, RPSG Ventures, and Spencer's Retail. Mr. Goenka has been the youngest ever president of Indian Chamber of Commerce. Currently, Mr. Shashwat Goenka is Chamber of FICCI Young Leaders Forum and Chairman of CII National Committee on Retail. Mr. Shashwat Goenka is also the Honorary Consulate of Finland in Kolkata. He has received numerous awards, some of which are Hello Magazine Award, the Emerging Business Leader for 2019, Economic Times Family Business Awards, the Most Promising Scion Award for 2018, Economic Times 40 Under 40 Award, India's Hottest Business Leaders 2018. After completing his schooling at St. Xavier's College, Mr. Shashwat Goenka obtained his degree from the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. We welcome you, sir. I invite you to kindly begin your address.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your love and support over the years. We at RPSG represent a diverse group, a group with companies in diverse industries, but a group which has a common philosophy across the companies. The last few years were the start of our journey of transformation, of our journey of reinvention. We focused on building efficiencies, on building processes that were best in class, looking at costs, looking at controls, so that we could earn our right to grow. And now, as we stand in the wake of the post-pandemic world, we are ready to start our next phase, a phase of growth, a phase of value addition, a phase of value creation, a phase of being conscious of our environment, a phase of research, of building products for the future, and of rewarding our shareholders. Growth for us is growth not just of the top line, but also of the bottom line. We believe in growth, and growth that is sustainable, not growth for vanity, nor for ego. Growth that is profitable, growth for value creation. Every business of ours has a well-defined growth trajectory. And there will be growth, which will be a combination of organic and inorganic. We also do not believe in a debt-heavy approach for growth. The debt equity at the group level is a 1.1:1. Almost all companies have virtually no long-term debt except Power. Let me share some examples of growth from our company. In PCBL, there is a strong focus on R&D and product development for the expansion of the high-margin product portfolio. The EBITDA margin has increased to 19.8% from 8.8% 6 years ago. The company is shifting focus from being a commodity company to a company in the chemicals space, in the value-added space, in the specialty chemical space. It's focusing on futuristic technologies such as superconductive grades, hybrid fillers, and carbon nanotubes. We have set up a state-of-the-art R&D center in Belgium that focuses on new product development and fundamental research. There is growth through capacity addition as well. A 147 kiloton plant near Chennai, upgrading of our plants in Gujarat, a new specialty project in Mundra. With all of this, we should be achieving a strong growth momentum. In Firstsource, we shifted focus from being a top-line focused company to a company that focuses equally on both the top and the bottom. Our new deals and wins are all bottom-line accretive. We have invested in building competency, in building people, in building SG&E, both organically and inorganically through acquisitions. For example, a recent acquisition that we had done in the mortgages space. We are growing not just across healthcare, BFSI, and CMT, which were the 3 core pillars at Firstsource, but also in the space of fast growth tech, digital, and we plan to grow this significantly. The company has also demonstrated one of the highest growths in the industry in terms of revenue. Our deal traction has been robust, with the highest ever number of wins in select segments. We believe in working with our clients like strategic partners in business, giving them long-term results. This in turn has improved stickiness of our clients, and this is what is giving us continuous growth. In Power, we have the highest digital penetration in any utility in the country. We have enhanced our customer experience through machine learning and AI. The focus is now to grow the distribution side of the business. There will be no capacity addition in the fossil fuel space. We believe by growing the distribution side of the business, we will get access to a lot many more consumers, which then becomes a pipeline to sell other things through it. Today, in the Power businesses, we have access to 4.3 million customers in 7 different cities. So in the Power businesses, value creation will be driven through continued strong operational performance and growth in the distribution space. In Saregama, there has been strong revenue growth driven by cutting-edge products such as the Carvaan. The music licensing business has also grown more than 2x in the last 4 years. The focus now is to grow the content repertoire of music, and not just Hindi music, but also regional music. Regional music is a space that no other national competitor focuses on and could therefore be a big differentiating factor for us. In retail, we have established strong leadership footprint in our chosen clusters. Both brands together, we have 190 stores over 41 cities and a total trading area of 14.7 lakh square feet. The brands have a strong loyalty, with 70% plus being repeat customers. Instead of having stores all over, at Spencer's, we have a focused strategy on selected areas of expansion: West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, UP, and NCR. We believe this will help us achieve deeper penetration in existing clusters. Because at the end of the day, retail is a local play, and that is what gets you economies of scale. We will continue to add trading areas in these geographies. Last year, we opened 12 stores, equivalent of 1 lakh square feet trading area in these geographies. And this year, there is a plan to open 11 of them. A few years ago, McKinsey had advised us to focus on hypermarkets. While growth there would be slower due to lesser availability of larger floor plates, the long-term prospect of this format was significantly better than the smaller neighborhood stores. Today, 2/3 of our business comes from large format stores. The hypermarket store economics are one of the best in class. It also allows us to focus on higher margin categories such as apparel and general merchandise. For us, private label has also been a focus area, with 14% sales coming from private brands. Spencer's has also always had an omni-channel outlook, which started with the acquisition of Mera Grocer in 2017-18. The out-of-store business, as we call it, catapulted with the pandemic, and the business pivoted seamlessly to adapt to new operating models to serve customers. We had orders coming in not just from the app and website, but over the phone and on WhatsApp as well. In the first half of this year, the out-of-store business stood at 18% of the overall business versus just 1% in FY20. The online business has grown 6.5x versus FY19 and 4.5x versus FY20. Beyond just top-line growth for the business, we also worked on driving efficiencies and cost efficiencies in this business. And that has enabled us to have one of the lowest fulfillment costs in the industry at rupees 53 per order. On Nature's Basket, when we took over, there were concerns raised whether it's a good decision to take over a small and hugely loss-making company. 4 quarters later, we were EBITDA positive. The business today is growing and has since expanded beyond Bombay, Pune, and Bangalore to Calcutta and NCR as well. The sales throughput is one of the highest in the industry on a per square foot basis. Margins have improved from being in the late teens to now being in the late 20s. Here too, digital and the omni-channel business is at a healthy 25% of the overall business. And the plan here also is to grow the online business, but not at negative margin. Shifting into the other side of the consumer businesses, the FMCG business. We pioneered guilt-free snacking. It's a category that did not exist. We entered into the extremely competitive space of snacks, but made a mark and created a brand that is now known nationally. With 6 unique products, 2Yum is one of India's fastest growing snacks brands in the country. We entered into the potato chips market earlier this year, which is 50% of the overall Western snacks market. And true to our brand promise, we gave consumers a product that is at par with the leader in terms of taste and texture, but it's also 40% less in saturated fat. It's been 6 months in the market, and the results are encouraging. We have seen strong repeat rates from stores and consumers alike. We currently have 2 factories to cater just to potato chips, and now we are looking to expand production to 2 more. We have a distribution footprint of 3 lakh outlets, and the plan is to extend this to almost 5 lakh stores in the next 18 to 24 months. Given the success of 2Yum in the Western snacks market, we're also looking to enter with 2Yum in the Indian ethnic space as well. And that should be happening in the next quarter. Ayurveda is also a big focus area for growth. With Dr. Vaidya's, the last year was a year that we used to set the basics right. It was a year to get better controls, a year to put in place processes and systems, a year of putting together a strong team. It was a year of rebranding for the modern consumer, a year of reviewing our formulations to deliver on better claims, With over 50 products in its portfolio, Dr. Vaidya's is an online-first FMCG play in Ayurveda. And what sets us apart from the competition is that we are new age, yet we are mass and affordable. Ayurveda is a 35,000 crore market and it's growing. And we plan to focus on the growing subsegments of this market. And we want to play in areas where Ayurveda has been shown to be very efficacious. For example, weight management, sexual wellness, immunity. Just to give you one example, we will be launching a range of Chyawanprash, which in itself is a huge market. But we will have Chyawanprash made specially for diabetics, for postpartum women, and for kids. And it will be available not just in the traditional paste format, but in newer formats such as toffees and pills. Evita is a brand that caters to the value snacks market. With a focus in the West, South, and UP, we have deepened our presence in these areas and expanded our product segments to include a range for kids and to larger family packs. Distribution has expanded to 47 new channel partners, and we will soon be expanding into the East as well. From 21 crores revenue 6 quarters ago to 53 crores in FY22 second quarter, the business has seen robust growth post-pandemic. We recently launched Naturally, which marked our entry into the personal care space. It's a 70,000 crore industry, with hair care and skin care being 34,000 crores. This is growing at a CAGR of 10%. With Naturally, we aim to offer our customers natural hair care and skin care products, which are free from harmful chemicals. Again, our USP here is that unlike other natural brands in the market, which are at 2x price points of mass market brands, we are at price parity to national leading brands. It is a brand that uses natural trendy ingredients such as avocado, red raspberry oil, cactus, etc., coupled with immense R&D and consumer studies to make efficacious products that work. And unlike other natural personal care products, our products don't take long to work. You get results from the first use itself. It's free from parabens, sulfates, formaldehydes. There's no mineral oil, there's no phthalates. Our approach is to tackle lifestyle issues such as damage from pollution, hair fall, dandruff, acne, etc. We've done a soft launch in NCR and Karnataka. We are present already in over 3,000 stores in these two regions, and the initial customer and retailer traction is encouraging. By the end of this month, we will be live across e-commerce platforms nationally as well. And the national GT launch will be in the next quarter. So I think overall, the Indian FMCG industry has huge room to grow. And we at RPSG aim to build a diversified conglomerate, which will be led by new age brands, which create innovative products for the modern aspirational consumer. And this is going to be based on 4 key pillars: to play in categories of scale, to create disruptive innovations, to build strong brand equity, and to build a robust online and offline GTM infrastructure. For us, each portfolio and brand will grow significantly. We plan to deliver industry-leading growth in our FMCG business for the next few years to create a meaningful business vertical. Now, stepping away from these examples, beyond growth and value creation, at RPSG, we lay a strong emphasis on sustainability and ESG. We have embraced it as a key strategic pillar for all our businesses, and we have taken and are continuously taking many steps towards that. Let me share a few examples with you. So for example, in power, our ESG rating has been upgraded from B to BB. There is a plan to convert all our vehicles to electric. In PCBL, we have invested in existing plants to reduce emissions, and the new plants will virtually be emission-free. In Spencer's, we have installed 100 kilowatt capacity of solar energy in 4 locations, and all our stores operate purely on LED lighting. We also offer our customers an option of e-billing, which reduces paper wastage. As a group, most of our buildings are green buildings. There has also been investments in technologies to strengthen governance. Thus, sustainability and ESG is core to all of our companies at RPSG. Overall, we have focused towards leading the industries in which we operate. There has been a strong focus on competitiveness, on growth, on sustaining and enhancing margins. Our businesses have continuously strengthened their operating models. They are increasing their digital adoption and penetration, and they continue to focus on improving efficiencies. They are resilient, they are agile, and they are able to bounce back very quickly. We also believe in giving a return to shareholders, and we are giving higher and higher returns as a matter of policy. I'd like to end by repeating or by quoting something that the chairman mentioned yesterday, which is very true to the essence of the group. We have a strong resolve to grow and to grow profitably, to grow where more value is created for all stakeholders, where value is created with a strong focus on ESG and the environment. With that, I would now like to open the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now be open for the Q&A session. For this, I would like to invite Mr. B.L. Chandak to be the moderator for this session. Audience, you can ask your questions via the Q&A tab, or you can also ask your questions directly, or you can type in your questions in the Q&A tab. Request the panelists to kindly begin the session.
Thank you, Shashwat, for your detailed account on group companies and activities. Now, some of the questions I received from various investors, and some of them I'd like to discuss before we take questions from audience also. One question is, how do we attract good talent and how do we retain them? The example given by this person is that earlier we were in industrial age where everybody was concerned with roti, kapda, makan. Then we shifted to information age and we shifted our focus on standard of life. Now we are in social and digital age where everybody is concerned on quality of life. So are we giving quality of office, quality of work, important roles to be played by them, and independence in decision making? And what are other incentives we give to retain some of the best talents we have employed in our group companies?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Chandak. So I think for us, talent is very important, right? I think all of our companies exist and they grow because of the talent that we have. And I think one of the key things from a talent perspective is actually understanding what is it that each of the employees today want, right? Like you said, people have moved on from the industrial revolution and now it's the digital revolution, and the needs and requirements of the employees are now different, right? And I think one of the key things that we do is that the companies are very strongly focused on growth and value creation. And that is what drives and gives employees, the ability or the opportunity to kind of become entrepreneurs in themselves, right? And we give them a huge degree of empowerment to be able to take decisions, take risks, and follow through with those decisions and actions. And I think that is one of the key things that sets us apart. And just from a retention perspective, a lot of our companies also are now starting to give ESOPs. And I think that is another thing that we are doing.
Yeah, thank you, Shashwat. Another question has come up on capital allocation policy. Over the last couple of years, we have improved quite a lot and we have started giving good amount of dividend in respective companies. We have been able to reduce some part of debts also, and we are spending money on growth. So people would like to know whether we'll continue with this kind of policy.
Absolutely, we will continue with a similar policy. It's worked well for us. Capital allocation is purely done basis where we believe we will get the highest returns. And each of our companies, like I outlined earlier, are growing. And a lot of them are virtually net debt free, etc., no long-term debt. So I think there is a lot of focus on how we allocate capital efficiently. And I think what we've done so far has worked well for us, and that will continue.
Thank you. Next question is, we want to be number one or number two in the industries which we operate. So are there instances where we still need to take miles further to improve our competitiveness among our companies we operate?
So amongst most of the companies we operate today, we are amongst the top few players that are there, right? But I think having said that, that's not enough. I think given the fast pace at which the world is changing, at which the industries are changing, at which consumers are changing, we have to continuously innovate, reinvent ourselves, and we have to always question status quo. And I think that is something that we do across all of our companies. And that is what kind of leads us and gives us that right to grow, and also with a strong focus on continuously becoming best in class, becoming better operationally, becoming more efficient. I think all of these combination of factors put together is what will really give us the right to grow and create that competitive distinction or differentiation.
Group has been operating Spencer Retail for quite foreseeable time, and Nature Basket was a great turnaround in the recent past. So do you think that kind of turnaround can happen in Spencer, and on consolidated basis, whether company can become PAT positive, and if so, how soon?
Fair. So let me answer this. It'll be a little long answer and I'll kind of explain it. So, in Spencer's, our focus has been on growing the large format stores, right? This is something that I mentioned that McKinsey had advised us a few years ago. And today, 2/3 of our business comes from the large format stores. In these, the store economics are one of the best in class. Now, with the pandemic, what we have seen is people are now moving not just to large format stores, but are also shopping closer to home from smaller neighborhood stores. And with Nature's Basket, what we have seen is we operate these smaller format stores, right? And because we've been able to turn that around, it has given us huge confidence on how both the large format and the small format stores can actually coexist, and both of them can be run very profitably. The other area of growth as far as retail is concerned will be coming from the online business, where we will be looking at growing the out-of-store and omni-channel business, but it will not be growth at a negative margin. Having said all of that, I think COVID has set us back 2 years, right? Our plans have gone a little bit haywire because of that. This is not an excuse, it's a reality. So, we've lost 1.5 lakh trading hours in the last 18 months. There has been a decline in footfalls because of COVID. A lot of our stores are present in malls where, due to social distancing, the number of people that can visit have been restricted as well. So some of it is environmental. But in the last 18 months, we've also done a lot of good things, right? We've cut costs to a high degree. We've also done a massive digital transformation. The out-of-store business is at 18% with the lowest per order fulfillment cost. And we've also been able to turn the Nature's Basket business around. So I think with all of this, as we start to recover from the pandemic, we should not be very far away from becoming positive.
Last year, Spencer raised about 80 crores through rights issue, but we did not know about pandemic and losses are still to be funded. So what are the plans to take care of those? Would we have another issue, or in the interim, we will only have increase in debts?
So as far as funding for the retail business is concerned, I think we are making money at an operating level, right? So the real thing that only needs to be funded is essentially the CapEx. And I think this would be funded with a combination of debt and equity.
Okay, one more question on RPSG Venture. Now, RPSG Venture is supposed to fund a lot of losses for next couple of years till we get into maturity. And now IPL is also part of RPSG Venture, at least 51% of that. Dr. Goenka told that he would like to induct money from his side also. But then this person is asking, are we also having some plans to monetize some of the assets of RPSG Venture in case required?
So I would say, as far the way I would read that question is, are we looking to sell anything at RPSG Ventures to be able to fund some of the other, right? I think currently there is no such plan. On the FMCG side, I think it will be through a combination of debt and equity. And as far as IPL is concerned, like you also mentioned, the chairman has already outlined that it will be funded, for a large part through the family office as well.
Okay, now let me turn into question answers. You talked about PCBL's Research and Development Center at Belgium. Any specific advantage of having location in Belgium? You already had one center in, say, in India.
Absolutely. So I think Belgium puts us in the right location because one, as we do a lot more international expansion in the business and we start focusing on the high margin product portfolio, Belgium is correctly placed to give us that cutting edge research, which will help us move up the value chain in terms of specialty chemicals and rubber blacks as well.
Okay. In power business, you say we can cross-sell more products as we reach out to more consumers, since we have 4.3 million consumers across various geographies. So what kind of cross-selling we can bring in?
So essentially, as we keep adding a database of consumers in each of our businesses, right, be it power or any other business, you can kind of create a huge database or a funnel of consumers through which you can, funnel through a lot of different products, right? So you could, for example, why can't we cross-sell our retail merchandise to consumers of power? Why can't we cross-sell our FMCG products to consumers of power? Why can't we cross-sell the products made by Saregama to the consumers of power? So the idea is if we can consolidate all of this and, maybe, who knows, create some kind of a super app or something which could be used to kind of, bridge the divide between all of these companies and the consumers and bring them together into one platform, the potential could be massive.
Okay. Do we worry about competition from Reliance and DMart for Spencer's? Do we run the risk of becoming a marginal player?
So for us, competition is not just from the bigwigs of Reliance and DMart. I think we are competing with every person in retail. We are competing with that local kirana. We are competing with the sabzi wala. We are competing with the sabzi mandis. We are competing with everybody, right? And we've been doing so ever since we ever started our play in the retail space. So I think the idea is definitely to continue to innovate, reinvent, to continue to get more operational efficiencies, to curtail costs, to grow margins, and to become more profitable and to grow, but grow sustainably and profitably as we expand.
Okay, let's see in the Q&A box. Aditya Nahar wanted to ask some question earlier. He told me he's there, so let me ask him. Aditya, will you like to put your question?
Yeah, hi Shashwat and Chandak Saab, thank you so much. Hope you can hear me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so Shashwat, obviously it's a great vision you sort of laid out for the entire group and your father yesterday as well. Just wanted to check, the market disappropriately rewards focus in companies, right? So companies that tend to do one thing extremely well. Obviously, you all have been successful in doing what you all have done over the last 40, 50, possibly even 70 years. My question is, how do you manage to focus on core businesses? What is your leadership outlook? So you've had fantastic managers in Vikram, in Mr. Roy, now maybe even Firstsource. How does that sort of work? What is the philosophy on appointing managers? And a follow-up to that is, how much of a role do they have in capital allocation?
Fair.
Or is the capital allocation driven broadly by the promoter family?
So I think the capital allocation is driven, holistically, depending on what plans each of the businesses have and what is the growth potential for each of those businesses. And I think one of the key things that we look in the leaders, like you mentioned as well, is their potential and their ability to continuously learn new things and unlearn old things. I don't know if that answers your question.
Right. So in terms of strategy, how do you look at leadership? Do you look for leaders who will continue to work for 10, 15 years with the company? Obviously you've given them autonomy, because otherwise people like Vikram and your other managers won't stick around for so long. So just wanted to know how does that work? Is there a process that you all follow internally? So you're smiling. So obviously you've thought about this a lot. So.
Absolutely. Fair. And I think for us, when we start a relationship with any of our managers, it is not a time-bound relationship, right? It is a relationship of meeting of ideas, meeting of plans for where we want to take the businesses, right? And as long as that holds true, I think that's what keeps that relationship going.
Got it. And if you have any internal benchmarks for capital allocation at a group level, what is the minimum hurdle rate for returns for new ventures? If you could talk about that briefly. And that's my last question. Thank you.
Okay, fair. No, thanks for that question. And I don't really have a specific answer for that because it's case to case basis depending on what value that individual project would give to the group. So it's difficult to give a hurdle rate, but I think it's really on a case to case basis.
Great. Thank you so much, Shashwat. And thank you,
Thank you,
Chandak.
Aditya.
Yeah, thank you. Pankaj Jaju appears to be there and he wanted to ask one question. Last time he told me. Pankaj, will you talk?
Is not getting the voice. You have to move to next speaker.
Yeah. Let me see among this.
We have a question from Ankit Agarwal.
Yeah, I think you can take that.
Hello.
Ankit, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Shashwat. Thank you for all the insights into the businesses. My question is on eVita brand. I remember when we acquired like a few years back, the revenues, I think, as per the various media articles, were around 200 crore. It seems like we are back to the same annual run rate, but just a bit surprised that we haven't grown as much. What do you think are the factors driving that?
Sure. So let me be very honest with you, right? When we took over eVita, it was firstly our first foray into the FMCG space. So it's a space that we were learning. And what we did that did not work right for us was we tried to corporatize the entire way that eVita worked, which was a very mass market value player, right? And that is where putting in a huge amount of systems, processes, controls, in the traditional corporate way, backfired for us. And we actually, if you see the trend, degrew after we took over, right? And then came the pandemic, right? Which didn't help either. But as I mentioned as well, 6 quarters ago, we were at about 23 crores of top line. Second quarter this year, we're at 53 crores top line. So the business has grown significantly thereafter. Yes, today we are back to, or just a little over where we were when we acquired the business. But now the business is set, the fundamentals are set for us to be able to grow this.
Okay, so it's been well integrated now, and you think this levels can sustain now?
Absolutely. In fact, they'll sustain and grow.
Okay, great. And second question is on Peelworks. This is a space that is interesting. I mean, there are a lot of new age players who are into the space. There is not much update we have seen like from the group in regards to it. Just want a sense on like, does it have a lot of synergies with our existing ventures like Spencer's and even other retail ventures? And what's the outlook?
Sure. So Peelworks is a small investment that we had done, and I think it has huge potential and synergy with what we are doing at the group on the consumer side, right? So essentially, what Peelworks does is it links up to a series of kirana stores and mom and pop stores across the country, and serves as their back end funnel for them to be able to purchase the FMCG products instead of going directly to distributors of FMCG companies, right? So I think the potential is huge. It has huge scope for growth. There were challenges navigating it through the pandemic, especially when mom and pop stores were closed, when production of FMCG was limited, and therefore to get stock from FMCG companies for a company like Peelworks was also limited. But as we now recover, I think the synergies could be big, where we could actually use Peelworks as a platform, not just to channel our entire FMCG portfolio, but alongside that, also the private brand portfolio that we have in the retail side. And therefore, that private brand portfolio could potentially be taken out beyond just the Spencer's and Nature's Basket stores to a series of kirana stores across the country.
Got it. Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ankit.
Yeah, next question is from Dixit. Let me open. Yeah, Dixit, you can ask.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Dikshit.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Just one question you mentioned, and even the father mentioned yesterday that, the IPL team will be a 50-50 JV, and still how the majority of the funding will happen through family office, if you can elaborate on that. And my second question is on the FMCG business. So, we have seen that these potato chips and such businesses are very competitive in nature. And our focus has always been on, building a brand through large investments in advertisement and branding. But let's say there will be a stage where we have to minimize some investment in the branding or advertisement. At that level, how we will sustain the growth and the profitability?
Okay, thanks. So as far as the IPL business is concerned, even the chairman mentioned yesterday that, over the period of 10 years, it will be about 3,000 crores is by and large what will be required to be funding, right? And that will be a combination, because this is a joint venture between RPSG Ventures and the family office. It will be done in combination. And the chairman had also mentioned, and I'll just reiterate, is that from the RPSG Ventures side, there will be no more than 200 crores per year kind of investment that will go into this business. On the FMCG side, yes, the potato chip space is very, very competitive. And you have to do a lot of advertisement, a lot of marketing to create that brand and space in the mind of the consumer. So I think as far as potato chips and the overall FMCG business is concerned, I think the next 3 to 5 years will be a phase of huge growth, and investment in that growth, right? So there will be a lot of marketing that will need to be done to create that brand, to create the stickiness for the products and the brand. And I think thereafter, as the brand becomes more known, as the products and the consumers become more sticky, I think we will be able to at some point drive efficiencies on marketing spends. But until then, this will continue. And that is true to, by and large, I would say, every FMCG company that exists out there, and to any FMCG new product that is launched.
Okay, and the next question is from someone. Group chairman yesterday talked about performance of all the group companies, and that was far better than even normal year. So what are the kind of key learnings you got, and how you are going to use in the current financial year or subsequent years?
So, okay, so a lot of key learnings. One was that we need to continuously keep questioning ourselves on how we can do better, right? Second was, the pandemic gave us an opportunity to cut a lot more fat that we didn't believe existed, right? So there was a lot of efficiencies on the cost side that were there. We were also able to focus on new avenues for growth. And I think so one of the key learnings, at least for me from there, has been on agility, on reacting with speed, and to be able to understand what are the consumers' needs in a new changing environment.
Thank you. Namit Arora wants to ask you a question.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, Chandak ji, thank you for the opportunity. And Shashwat, thank you for very helpful remarks. Shashwat, my question is around, given the pedigree of your group and the legacy, you have a wide space ahead of you. So what are your thoughts on some disruptive thinking on adjacencies, new verticals? Because we are seeing like literally hundreds of D2C companies come by, create value, but you have a legacy, you have a pedigree, you have capital, what are your thoughts on sort of some disruptive efforts? You could probably be doing 10 D2Cs given the strength of your group, right?
Fair. No, thanks so much for the question, Namit. I think like you said, there are huge legacies, there's a huge sense of responsibility. But disruption is kind of now no more a differentiating factor. You kind of have to do that to be able to sustain and to be able to grow, right? And we've been able to do that across the businesses, right? So for example, Carvaan was a disruption in distribution of music, right? I spoke about Chyawanprash, right? And how we are planning to disrupt the industry by coming in with not just a traditional paste format, but also a toffee and pills version, which is an easier to consume version. So I think disruption will be key, innovation will be key. And I think, as a group, we've always expanded. With each decade, you will see, or with every few years, there has been a new addition. Sometimes it has been an addition in spaces that are adjacent, and sometimes it's been in spaces that are completely diversified, right? So for example, the BPO business, Firstsource, was completely diversified, but that's a business that we've been able to adapt and grow significantly well. So I think it will be really a combination of organic, inorganic, and adjacent and diverse business.
Got it. Shashwat, if I might take the liberty, Chandak ji, with your permission, of just one more follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. One more follow-up question. Shashwat, what is your message in terms of attracting talent, given that there could be very senior FMCG professionals in various companies who may want to be sort of different kind of entrepreneurs, right? So what is your message, your ability to attract these talent, give them flexibility, autonomy, maybe some meaningful stock options? Because some of these senior professionals, right, could really kickstart a lot of your initiatives. So how are you going to go about attracting this talent, incentivizing them, ESOPs, culture, autonomy, flexibility, all that?
Absolutely. So I think for us, empowerment, autonomy, and treating managers, leaders as entrepreneurs in their own right is what's worked for us. And that's, I think, that's why we've been able to attract the right kind of talent. Today, even in the FMCG vertical itself, we have talent from across leading FMCG majors, both from startup as well as established MNCs as well. So I think that's really what's worked for us. And I think it will probably continue to work for us as well.
Okay, very good to know. Thank you, Shashwat, for your detailed thoughts, and all the best to you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Namit. Thank you.
Thanks.
Dixit had another question, so let me unmute him.
Sorry, no, I don't have any question. I just forgot to lower the hand. Thanks.
Okay. Now another question is from someone that you talked about Peel, and then there are so many other investments in your venture capital fund. So do you think those are also likely to be great success, and those funds can be utilized partly to meet your FMCG requirements?
Sure. So absolutely. And I think a very valid question. So the VC fund was set up with an initial corpus of 100 crores to leverage emerging opportunities in India through the incubation of these new businesses in the FMCG and consumer tech space. We've already invested close to 65% of that money in 11, 12 different companies. And today, each of those companies are giving us great returns. They are giving us healthy returns. And most of the portfolio companies have grown manifold during and post-pandemic. So yes, of course, that could definitely be an option.
Okay, market cap of our companies have gone up, but maybe not to the extent those multiples speak about. Any thoughts on that?
I think this is a question more for the market to answer.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone also asked, how do you see your next 20 years? You talked about that you are 31 or 32. So for you, there is a long way to go. And where do you see this group can be in, say, 20 years' time? Although it's too long, but still you can give some summation of your imagination.
Absolutely. I think 20 years is a very, very long time frame. We don't know what era of revolution we are going to be in by then, or how many we would have crossed by then. But I think really, I think the core to the group has been, you have these legacies and you can continue to grow them, and you have to create new and lasting legacies as well. And I think for me, I look at each of the businesses as one such legacy, right? And whether it's an existing business which has been with us for the last many decades, or a new business which we've just about started a week, 2 months, 3 months ago. And I think each of them needs to be nurtured and will need to grow. And we will need to continue to expand and grow into diversified different sectors and industries as well.
Okay, if there are no more questions, you can give your final message on the group.
There's one question which has come in the chat box.
Yeah.
Very interesting question I will read out.
Yeah, just read out.
How is your management style different from that of Dr. Sanjeev Goenka?
I think this is a question again that maybe he'll be able to answer better. But I use every opportunity I get to learn every day from him in terms of, how better to conduct myself and how better to conduct business. And I think one of the key lessons that I learned from him very early on when I had just joined, right, was because, I was put in a room with people with a lot more experience than me. I was in a room where I was the only one who was straight out of college with no work experience as such. And you were not sure as to how to make a point to people who have that experience with them, and people who are much older than you. And one of the things that Dad had mentioned at that point was, if you have logic for any rationale or point that you are trying to put across, please do not be scared of that. Please put it across. And your logic may win, somebody else's logic may be more logical and therefore better. And I think that is something that I've carried with me through and through. And that's really helped me. So I think, how are they different? I don't know, but I'm learning every day from.
Thank you, Shashwat. If there are no more questions, you can give your final message.
Thank you, Mr. Chandak. And thank you to all of you all who were here with us today. Your support over the years has been immense. For us at the group, innovation, growth, value creation are of utmost importance. And we look forward to your support in this journey as we traverse this path together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Over to Dolly.
Thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you panelists for such an interesting session. The next session will begin at 2 p.m. You can attend the session by logging into the microsite and clicking on the live sessions tab. Thank you.
Thank you.
RP Sanjeev Goenka Group is a diversified conglomerate operating in sectors like power and natural resources, carbon black, IT, education, retail, FMCG, media, entertainment, infrastructure, and sports. It has 45,000 employees and more than 5 lakh shareholders. Group assets have grown to 48,500 crore rupees.